You don't have panic attacks, you don't hyperventilate, you don't call in sick or cancel plans because you're too anxious to function. From the outside, you look completely fine, you show up, you perform, you handle everything that's asked of you. But inside, there's a constant hum, a low-grade tension that never fully goes away, a voice that never stops analyzing, calculating, preparing for problems that haven't happened yet. This is quiet anxiety. And it's exhausting precisely because no one can see it. You've learned to function with it, to carry it like background noise you've stopped noticing. But just because you've adapted doesn't mean it's not costing you. Every conversation you replay, every text you overanalyze, every decision you second-guess, it all takes energy. And by the end of the day, you're drained in a way that makes no sense to anyone else because you didn't do anything visibly difficult. But you did. You just did it all internally. There's a man who sits in meetings and contributes normally. He makes eye contact. He nods at the right moments. He even makes jokes that land. But beneath the surface, his mind is running a parallel track. Did that comment sound stupid? Is his boss annoyed? Did he interrupt someone without realizing it? Should he have stayed quiet? The meeting ends and everyone moves on. But he's still replaying it hours later, scanning for mistakes, building evidence that he said something wrong. This is silent anxiety. It doesn't scream, it whispers, and the whisper never stops. Most people think anxiety is visible, that it looks like someone struggling to breathe or refusing to leave the house. But quiet anxiety hides behind competence, behind a calm exterior, behind the ability to show up and perform even when your nervous system is firing on all cylinders beneath the surface. You've probably been told you're overthinking, that you worry too much, that you should just relax, and maybe you've even believed them. Maybe you've thought that if you could just stop analyzing everything, if you could just let things go, you'd feel better. But it's not that simple, because your mind isn't overthinking for fun. It's trying to keep you safe. The problem is that your definition of safe has become unreasonably narrow. There's a woman who checks her sent emails multiple times after hitting send, not because she made obvious mistakes, but because she needs to confirm the tone was right, that she didn't come across as too demanding or too passive, that she didn't accidentally offend someone. She knows this is excessive. She knows the email was fine, but the rumination won't stop until she's checked. And even after checking, there's still a small thread of doubt that follows her through the rest of the day. This is the part of the anxious mind that people don't see, the constant verification, the mental loops, the need to be certain about things that don't have certain answers. It's not dramatic, it's just relentless. You don't miss work because of your anxiety. You don't avoid social situations entirely. You don't have obvious symptoms that would make someone ask if you're okay. You just exist in a state of perpetual vigilance, always scanning, always preparing, always braced for something to go wrong. And the exhaustion comes from the fact that you can never fully relax. Even in moments that should be restful, your mind is working, planning the next conversation, reviewing the last interaction, running through scenarios that might happen tomorrow or next week or never. There's a student who gets good grades, shows up to class, participates when asked. But every assignment feels like a test of her worth. Every grade feels like a verdict on whether she's good enough. She doesn't procrastinate because she's lazy. She procrastinates because starting means confronting the possibility of failure. And the anxiety around that possibility is so intense that avoiding it feels safer than facing it. When she finally does start, she works obsessively, checking and rechecking, rewriting paragraphs that were already fine, submitting at the last possible moment because she kept finding things to fix. And when it's done, there's no relief, just the immediate shift to worrying about the next thing. This is hypervigilance in academic form. The inability to trust that good enough is actually good enough. The constant feeling that if you're not monitoring every detail, something will go wrong. People with quiet anxiety become experts at appearing fine. You've learned which facial expressions communicate calmly. You've learned how to participate in conversations without revealing that your mind is somewhere else. You've learned to say yes when you mean no, because explaining why you can't do something feels more exhausting than just doing it. And nobody notices, because you've gotten so good at hiding it that you sometimes forget how much energy it takes. You know you have quiet anxiety when you're tired for reasons you can't explain. When someone asks what you did today and you can't point to anything particularly draining, but you feel completely depleted anyway. When you need hours alone after social interactions that seem easy. When you lie in bed at night and your body is exhausted, but your mind won't stop running through tomorrow's tasks, last week's conversations, hypothetical scenarios that will never happen. This is mental exhaustion without visible cause. And it's valid even if no one else understands it. There's a man who loves his partner. They have a good relationship. But sometimes when his partner is quiet, his mind immediately goes to worst-case scenarios. Are they upset? Did he do something wrong? Is something changing between them? He knows logically that people can just be quiet. That silence doesn't mean anger. But his nervous system doesn't believe that. It reads silence as danger, as the calm before a storm, as evidence that he needs to prepare for conflict. So he asks if everything is okay. And when his partner says yes, he feels relief, but only for a moment. Because now he's worried that he asked too many times, that he's being needy, that his anxiety is pushing them away. This is reassurance seeking, and it's one of the ways quiet anxiety maintains itself. You seek confirmation that things are okay, you get that confirmation, but instead of feeling secure, you start worrying that seeking confirmation was itself a problem. The loop never closes. There's always something else to worry about. Most people don't realize that pleasing people is a form of anxiety management. You say yes because saying no creates uncertainty. You agree because disagreeing might cause conflict. You shape yourself to fit what others need because being yourself feels too risky. And all of this happens so automatically that you don't even recognize it as anxiety. You just think it's who you are, but it's not. It's who you became to feel safe. There's a woman who can't remember the last time she stated a preference without checking whether everyone else was okay with it first. Where should we eat? Wherever you want. What movie should we watch? I'm fine with anything. What do you want to do this weekend? I don't mind either way. She thinks she's being easygoing, but really she's terrified of imposing, of being too much, of making someone accommodate her needs and then resenting her for it. This is the invisible cost of quiet anxiety. You lose access to your own preferences because expressing them feels dangerous. You become so focused on managing other people's comfort that you forget you're allowed to have needs too. And the exhaustion comes from the constant calculation, the mental math of figuring out what everyone else wants so you can align yourself with it. The monitoring of tone and body language to detect any sign of displeasure. The adjustment of your own behavior in real time to prevent problems that probably wouldn't happen anyway. Your nervous system is doing all of this beneath your awareness. It's running threat detection software 24/7, and because the threats it's looking for are social and emotional rather than physical, they're everywhere. Every interaction is a potential threat. Every silence could mean something. Every change in tone could signal danger. This is what people mean when they say you're overthinking. They're not wrong. You are thinking more than necessary. But they're missing the point. You're not doing it on purpose. You're doing it because your mind learned that thinking ahead, preparing for problems, monitoring for threats keeps you safer than just existing spontaneously. And maybe at some point that was true. Maybe you grew up in an environment where reading the room was necessary, where anticipating someone's mood gives you a head start on managing conflict, where being vigilant actually did protect you from something real, but that environment is gone, and your nervous system hasn't updated its protocols. This is the core of quiet anxiety. It's not about what's happening now. It's about what your mind learned to prepare for in the past. And even though the circumstances have changed, the preparation continues. The scanning continues. The vigilance continues. You're exhausted because you're still fighting a war that ended years ago. So what do? How do you live with silent anxiety that never announces itself loudly enough for anyone else to take seriously? You start by taking it seriously yourself. You stop minimizing it just because it's not visible. You stop comparing your anxiety to other people's and deciding yours doesn't count because you're still functional. Functionality doesn't mean you're not struggling. It just means you've learned to struggle quietly. The next step is identifying the patterns. When does your mind start scanning? What triggers the rumination? What are you actually afraid will happen if you stop monitoring everything? Most of the time, the fear is rejection, judgment, conflict, the loss of control over how people perceive you. Your mind thinks that if it stays vigilant, it can prevent these outcomes, but it can't. You can't control what other people think. You can only control how much energy you spend trying to. This is where internal control becomes essential. You practice noticing when you're in a monitoring loop and asking yourself if it's serving you. Is replaying that conversation actually helping? Is checking that email for the 4th time changing anything? Is seeking reassurance making you feel more secure or just feeding the need for more reassurance? Most of the time, these behaviors aren't helping. They're just maintaining the anxiety, and recognizing that gives you a choice. You can keep doing them out of habit, or you can try something different. You practice letting things be uncertain. Someone sends a short text and you don't analyze it. You make a decision without consulting 3 other people first. You say something in a meeting and then move on without replaying it for the rest of the day. These feel impossible at first because your mind will scream that you're being reckless, that you need to check. That letting go means something bad will happen, but most of the time, nothing bad happens. The text was just short. The decision was fine. The comment in the meeting was forgotten by everyone else 5 minutes later. And each time you practice this, you teach your nervous system that constant vigilance isn't necessary, that you can exist without monitoring everything and still be safe. You also practice self-criticism awareness. Quiet anxiety often comes with a harsh internal voice, one that tells you you're too much or not enough, that you should have known better, that you're failing in ways other people aren't. When you notice that voice, you name it. This is my anxiety talking. This isn't objective truth. This is my nervous system trying to protect me by being harsh first so no one else can be. And then you respond differently, not by arguing with the voice, but by acknowledging it and choosing not to let it dictate your actions. Thank you for trying to protect me. I'm okay. I don't need to prepare for every possible criticism. This doesn't make the voice disappear, but it does reduce its power. There's a woman who used to lie awake every night running through everything she said that day, analyzing, critiquing, building cases for why people probably thought she was awkward or annoying, and then one night she tried something different. She noticed the loop starting and said out loud, "I'm doing the thing again," and somehow naming it created distance. The thoughts were still there, but she wasn't tangled in them the same way. She started doing this every time the loop began, and slowly the pattern weakened, not because she stopped having the thoughts, but because she stopped believing they were telling her something true. This is how to stop overthinking at night, not by forcing your mind to be quiet, but by recognizing the pattern and choosing not to engage it. The thoughts can be there. You just don't have to follow them down every path they want to take you. Your quiet anxiety will probably never fully disappear, but it can become quieter, less demanding, less exhausting. You can learn to coexist with it instead of being controlled by it. And that starts with understanding that it's not a character flaw. It's not a weakness. It's just a nervous system that learned to be vigilant and hasn't learned yet that it's allowed to rest. You're not broken, you're just carrying a pattern that's outlived its usefulness. And patterns can change. Your anxiety is quiet, but you don't have to carry it silently. You can acknowledge it, you can work with it. You can build a life where it exists without consuming all your energy. And that's not about fixing yourself. It's about understanding yourself, about recognizing that the exhaustion is real even if no one else can see it, about giving yourself permission to rest even when you look fine from the outside. Because you've been carrying this quietly for long enough, and quiet doesn't mean it doesn't count. Subscribe to The Anxious Mind to understand your anxiety without shame and train a calmer mind. Like this video if you want clarity without judgment. What's one thing your quiet anxiety makes you do that no one else notices? Leave it in the comments. And if this resonated, the next video will show you why rest feels impossible even when you have time for it. Thank you for being here. You're not alone in this.